Something that should have been done 25, 30 years ago. Okay.
There we go. So what did Donald Trump just sign? What did he just sign? I'll tell you what, if you're an XRP holder, you're going to want to watch this. He says this should have been done years ago, and he's absolutely correct, but maybe not 20 years ago because XRP and Bitcoin did not exist. So today we're going to talk about an executive order Trump signed yesterday, March 25th, 2025, and its potential impact on the cryptocurrency market. If you're new to this channel, please like, subscribe, share. We do new shows every single day, and I'm sorry for my stuttering. It's been a long morning. But that being said, let's get right into it. But before I do, remember, I'm not a financial advisor. This isn't financial advice. I'm just going to tell you about what's going on in my life and the things I'm looking at to make my decisions on the cryptocurrencies that I hold and want to buy and want to DCA or buy into. Now with that, let's talk about this. So yesterday, Trump did the modernization payments to and from America's bank account. This was huge. If you weren't paying attention, now it's time to pay attention. You know, for years, the XRP Army has been talking about Ripple's ability to make cross-border payments and replace SWIFT and do all those things. Well, and all of the things are coming right into line. Now, I'm not telling you XRP is going to win this battle, but it is built for this. So if we take a look at exactly what this is basically Trump has said that there's been a lot of fraud, waste, and abuse tied to the paper checks that our Treasury system sends out for payments. Lots of fraud, waste, and abuse. And in fact, it says, let me find this here. It says that it's cost, it doesn't say it in here, but the paper checks alone, just organization, administration of these things, cost about $685 million a year just to send out the paper checks. So the whole goal is to modernize the financial payment system within the United States of how we make payments through some kind of EFT or electronic funds transfer, and basically digitize this payment system. Now, this is big because obviously, you know, when we send a check out, they say there's a huge propensity for it to get lost or stolen or fraud of some kind. It says actually costing American taxpayers $657 million in fiscal year alone just for the cost to send these checks out and deal with them. So that's a decent savings. I mean, people say, oh, $1 billion is a drop in the bucket. Well, that's not true. $1 billion still costs each taxpayer like $5 or something like that. And you add up these $1 billion, it's a big savings. You know, you can't just cut $1 trillion in one place. You got to make little cuts across the board. Now, what does this have to do with cryptocurrency? Why are we even talking about this? Well, it's obvious. It's super obvious. This is what the XRP maxis have been saying for a long time. Let's use XRP to replace the payment system. Now, I've looked at this and I said, well, what is really this all about? And I went to Grok, my buddy Grok over here. I asked it a lot of dumb questions because that's what I'm really good at. Is someone told me once I'm really good at asking the dumb questions, but that's how I learn. So it said starting September 30th, 2025, the government wants to stop using paper checks for the most of its payments it sends out and most payments it receives, like taxes or fines. They want to replace it with an electronic method like bank transfers, prepaid cards, or other digital options. Other digital options. I don't know. Has Brad Garlinghouse been meeting with President Trump? Has the SEC almost completely dumped their file? We talked last week about SEC, the Securities Exchange Commission, dropping charges or not further pursuing XRP. And yesterday I got news that XRP is in its final negotiations with the SEC, and this should be wrapped up. I think they put a certain amount of money. They have a certain amount of money in an escrow account, and they're actually going to be getting a huge refund from that escrow account because it's going to come down to about a $50 million payment for XRP to the SEC for its troubles. So let's look at it this way. Are things shaping up for XRP? What would that do to the price of XRP? Knowing that if it becomes this payment system, what would that do for the price of XRP? So I think, let's talk about, could XRP work? Well, it's fast, right? It's cheap, it's fast, and it has the functionality and the ability to be this payment system within the architecture that can be in place for the United States. Now, is it possible there's other systems they might consider? Yes. Could they build their own? Possibly. Could they be consulting with people like XRP to build their own? Maybe they're just paying XRP a consulting fee. I don't know. But it just makes a good amount of sense. Now, I can't promise you anything, but what would happen to the price of XRP? Well, let's say the government processes, say, like $100 billion yearly through XRP. Maybe they don't do the whole. I think the Treasury pays out something like $6 or $7 trillion a year in and out. That's a huge rotation. But let's just pretend that they just did it on a small basis, like not all the payments, but some of them. Maybe a pilot program. Well, I would say maybe it would jump XRP two to five times. Maybe it'd come to $5 to $10. Maybe they do it big time, like most of their payments. You could see a 20 to 80x from where we are now, maybe $50 to $200. Now let's look at the most crazy thing, that it becomes a global asset, and this is how money that replaces SWIFT, it replaces global currency. Yes, we could probably go to $1,000 or $10,000, but let's pull it back. Let's pull it all the way back to realism. And if it just uses as a pilot program for the U.S. starting September 30th, because that's the date that they said that they wanted to replace all this by, well, I don't think they can build a new blockchain by September 30th of this year. I don't think the United States is capable of building something pretty well proven and functional within that short amount of time. So they're probably going to have to adopt something else out there. Now they mentioned they could go to digital cards, or payment cards or EFTs. Those are expensive. Okay. Those are expensive. They're physical and it's hard to trace them. So I just don't think that's going to happen. Let's say they go to just bank transfers. Again, expensive, timely. When you transfer money in a bank from a bank to bank, it doesn't take 3 to 5 seconds like XRP. It takes days, sometimes 5 to 7 days to actually transfer that money. It's a promissory that we're going to move this money. And that's a lot of money to be moved on promises. That would disrupt banking, in my opinion. I'm probably way off on that. I don't know enough about that specific item. But I just don't think it makes sense when you have a perfectly good digital, very easily traceable through the blockchain system like XRP. Now, could it be others? Could it be Cardano? It possibly. Could it be Hedera? I know people have talked about that. But to me, not only am I hopeful, but I'm looking at XRP to be adopted as this system. I could be wrong. Now, what are your thoughts? What do you think this payment system is all about? Do you think it's going to be XRP? Do you think it's going to be Cardano? Do you think it's going to be something else? Do me a favor and let me know down below. But before we go, let's listen to Trump himself talk about this.
For payments. This is an executive order that's going to push the Treasury Department to modernize its payment system to ensure that where possible they're using electronic methods of payment as opposed to paper checks in order to reduce waste, fraud, and abuse in the government, which is obviously an endeavor that we've been pursuing in numerous aspects of government under your leadership.
It's basically modernization of equipment and methods, and it's something that really, I think he's going to be a great Secretary of the Treasury, wanted, Scott. And so we're doing this, and we have other modernization programs going on. We could let somebody else, whoever is next, whoever that may be, do it, but it's something that should have been done 25, 30 years ago.
Right. Now we have the systems to do it. We didn't have them before. We didn't have XRP 20, 30 years ago. We didn't have Bitcoin 20, 30 years ago. We didn't have blockchain, and we didn't have the same digital means that we have today. So there's no time like the president, Mr. President. So let's get this going. Let's hope it's XRP, because it would make XRP blast off. I'm still a holder, just to be fair, and I don't think I'm dumping my XRP anytime soon. They can scare you. They can do whatever they want to try to get it before this happens. But if this does happen, XRP could potentially blast off to the moon, and all those people saying crazy numbers, they might actually be right, and they might not be so crazy. With that, that's all I got. Hope you got something out of this. If you did, hit the like button, share, subscribe, do all those things, and I'll talk to you again soon.